Time, in my opinion, is a concept that's not really thought about despite being so scarce. We live in a world where life is busy, and there's always something we could be doing or maybe even should be doing that gets lost in a constant struggle of our time and being a normal, well-functioning person time. It's hard to split the two without letting one bleed into the other, and being probably the world's leading authority on what it looks like to put off my well-functioning person time as opposed to kicking back and wondering what it's like to have your balls dipped in a McDonald's deep fryer, I just realized my argument for this series has no foundation to stand on. Because we're constantly busy, I think it's no surprise that many of us don't stop to think about the time we've spent and how important it is. So I want you to imagine a universe where you have all the time in the world. Maybe you're an elf with a lifespan that quadruples the average length of a human's, with magic that's helped steer the world into an age of peace without the Demon King. Maybe you watch your friends grow old one by one until eventually you're alone. Maybe I'm completely mimicking the story of the anime that this video is about in some desperate struggle for a profound introduction. Frieren, Kudere Elf Girl's Bizarre Adventure is underrated. Some might even say goated or hoggers in a modern day setting. And while I've pretty much exclusively reviewed anime that I have a pretty high liking for on this channel, you know, when I'm not fucking off for 3 months, let me assure you that I do not use these descriptors lightly. Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a narrative about time that probably isn't new to a lot of us, and definitely isn't the most uncommon theme that we've seen in media even outside of anime. That said, while the theme of the importance of time isn't necessarily anything too new, the anime illustrated it in a way that was just so refreshing to watch. When we think of all the various isekai or fantasy anime out there, we're usually greeted with the start of a journey. The setting out of a party to achieve great ambitions like exploring a lost world, rising to the challenge of hard obstacles, not getting sexually targeted by goblins, all good things that will one day come to an end. Unfortunately. We watch these characters break through their obstacles and cheer them on every step of the way. It's normally a pretty linear progression, I feel, one that makes you feel really comfortable with this quirky, fun, super awesome chart as you follow along. We see that as the protagonist progresses, the characters develop in response to whatever opposing force is at play, deciding who they want to be based on what's in front of them in the moment. That said, I think Frieren is somewhat special in this sense, as it plays itself out a bit differently than most other kinds of anime like it. After having accompanied a party that set out to defeat the Demon King, we come into the anime knowing that the party of heroes has succeeded and is on their way to be greeted by a festival for their dub. The return of the heroes almost brings a singular glory tear to my eye. Not because of the beautiful animation or the heart-wrenching goodbye between all the heroes toward the end of the festival, but because finally in a fantasy anime, the adventurers did their fucking job and defeated the Demon King. This, in my opinion, was what made Frieren stand out from other fantasy anime, because rather than starting with the beginning and following whatever the fuck this diagram really says, Frieren's story begins with the end. It's worth noting that Frieren isn't the same as the rest of her party members. And while you might specifically think I'm talking about her proof of admittance into Santa's sweatshop, there's something deeper ingrained in elves that comes up a lot throughout the anime. Elves in this world are seemingly different, a lot different than humans, not only in regard to their lifespan, but also how they perceive the one thing that we all occasionally take for granted: time. As the anime progresses, we catch glimpses of Frieren's indifference to how she lives her life. Things like her arguments with Fern about staying in a village for 10 years to relax. An actual fourth of Fern's life, by the way, because, let's be honest, people in medieval times were getting fucking ratioed by rats. Or Frieren's words toward her original party members in the ending stages of the festival, chalking what would normally be a long night out with the boys up to a mere 10-year journey. It's clear in these cases and throughout the anime that Frieren's perception of time and how she spends it ultimately places her in her own world, where time is seemingly endless. That said, she never took the time to understand her party members, viewing them as a sort of temporary companion in her mind as her heart began to view them otherwise. This hit in such a beautiful way in the first episode. After the death of Himmel the hero, I took a specific interest in Frieren's reaction to his funeral. To be entirely honest, I don't know what confused me more. The fact that the same two senile old women that gossip about the main character in literally every anime that has ever existed found their way into a fantasy world, or the fact that a communion wafer was structurally sound enough to be pitched at Aizen's head like it was a fucking Wii Sports baseball tourney. I swear on God, these communion crackers and wine be hitting harder and harder every year. I really did find it interesting though, that during the viewing of Himmel in his casket, Frieren showed little emotion, only to be brought to tears at the sight of his burial, which is in some regard the legitimate stepping off point between the person being remembered and those they leave behind. As colorful memories flood the screen, pierced by a strangely melodic shoveling of dirt onto his casket, as if to bury the memories with him, Frieren finally sees the importance in what was once to her just a mere 10-year journey. Despite knowing the shorter lifespan of humans, she didn't account for the moments of worry, celebration, or laughable memories that accrued from having spent so much time with her party. I personally thought this was an amazing moment in the anime, as despite how little I knew about these characters, I could somehow resonate in a way that warranted an emotion. With that being the case, we see after the world has been set that Frieren devotes herself to a different journey. Empathy, ladies and gentlemen, is a shit word to spring on a kid in his 2nd grade spelling bee. However, it's also a good word to describe the thing Frieren wants most after witnessing the peaceful deaths of those who fought and traveled alongside her. Because of the people that journeyed with her, because of the impact they left behind. Frieren wants to be able to understand and share the feelings they held when they were all together. For the anime to portray Frieren's realization in such a tragic but beautiful way was something that I really enjoyed watching. In a way, Frieren doesn't just feel like an interchangeable character, but a genuine person who makes the same mistakes we do in similar ways that we sometimes do, learning the fault in her ways after it's already too late to remedy. And so, her story becomes the exploration of herself and how to rework the way she cooperates with the people around her. As she watches the members of her party drop one by one, she realizes just how valuable her time was with them, and how that time can't be gotten back, causing her to instead focus on humanity and the beauty in their life, short though it may be. As she adventures with Fern and Stark, Frieren discovers the path that she took to fight the Demon King, traversing newly evolved towns that were once underdeveloped, rediscovering faces that were once bright with youth, now aged with time, in an attempt to understand just how important time is with those around her. In reality, Frieren's story isn't a worldly adventure where the protagonist gets to see new lands, encounter new creatures, or indulge in heartwarming concepts such as Rather, Frieren has already seen these places, fought the same creatures, and can still get her shit rocked by a psychopathic Enderchest any breakfast of the fucking month. Instead, Frieren's story focuses on the wearing sands of time and how it's made her ignorant to those around her. That said, there's still so much that this anime has to offer outside of a relatable message. First, and probably foremost in this case, would be the animation, which honestly speaks for itself. I'm no art major, but I do draw myself, and personally, these are some of the best squiggles and colors I've seen in anime for a while. The colors are vibrant, bringing a breath of life into the anime that is honestly fitting of a fantasy world. The surrounding landscapes and softly lit skies at times have an almost watercolor styled vibe to them, one that oddly reminds me of an anime like Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash. Not to mention the different soundtracks that not only bring some of the more action-packed and mundane portions of the anime to life, but play to the strengths of a Celtic-styled fantasy theme that brings the viewer a sense of hype or calmness depending on the situation. Even the opening song, the absolute heat made by Yoasobi, and the beautiful animation that comes with it, is an amazing piece of music that sparked a wide array of responses from people across many different forums and sewage platforms across the world. To be honest, with all the heat the song got, the opening itself could probably warrant a video of its own. I mean, actually, the arguments on if this song is fitting or not have been crazy. There's so much to love and talk about in this anime, and while I know I'm late to making a video on it, I can say without a doubt that it is something that deserves to be put out there to an audience. Over the course of the 16 episodes I've watched, I've left every episode with a feeling of wanting more, a genuine interest to see how the world and its characters will play out. Frieren is a story about time that I believe nearly anyone can get behind, and is one that's being produced with an undeniably great quality to it. So if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend giving it a shot. Thanks for watching, and Happy New Year's, guys. Itterashai.
One call was all it took. Said you like my voice and it got you hooked. Hung up real quick, you misunderstood it all, yeah. Last chance to be friends, I guess. Don't talk like that if your head's a mess. If it gets like this, then you might regret it all. I don't even know you, but you probably know